Covered in blood and shaking in fear, a young woman desperately asks Aram what she should do as her dead father lies beside her. The cruel reality sinks in immediately as her father rests completely lifeless on the cold floor, having lost his life right before her eyes. Traumatized by the tragic scene, young Aram tries to convince himself that everything will be fine, even if he ends up entirely alone. Seeking an escape from his miserable dark room, he turns to his computer screen where an online game called Last Eden becomes his sole emotional comfort. 1. The moment he logs into the game, an adorable beginner guide NPC named Eve warmly welcomes Aram back into the virtual world. Inside this game, he isn't a helpless orphan but a formidable dark knight decked out in heavy armor and wielding a massive sword. With a bright pixelated smile, Eve welcomes him back once again and asks if he is ready to officially start playing today. As his digital avatar fully loads, Aram prepares to leave his harsh reality behind and immerse himself in his favorite sanctuary. Sitting alone in his messy dark room, he softly whispers to his computer screen that Eve is truly the only thing he needs in his life. Years pass by and Aram grows into a hollow high school student who carries an empty gaze and dead eyes wherever he goes. Walking near the school grounds, he comes across a gruesome sight as a stray cat lies dead and rotting on the sidewalk. Staring blankly at the lifeless creature, Aram quietly mutters to himself that its tragic state looks terrifyingly familiar to his past. As other students gather around, toxic rumors immediately spread, revealing to everyone that he is the infamous murderer's son whose mother went to prison. A female student walking past winces in complete disgust at the bloody corpse, clinging tightly to her classmate's arm. Unaware of his traumatic background, the students openly mock Aram for blankly staring at the dead cat, calling him an absolute creep. Completely unbothered by their harsh insults, Aram simply keeps his dark, emotionless gaze locked onto the ground. The silver-haired boy next to her smirks, asking if she seriously doesn't recognize a notorious guy sitting right in front of them. With a cruel smile, the boy loudly identifies him as Aram, casually exposing to the whole crowd that his mother is a convicted killer. Things are no better in the classroom, as Aram's desk is completely ruined with hateful slurs and malicious scribbles left by his peers. Standing over his vandalized desk, Aram stares down at the cruel messages without showing even a hint of anger or distress. Even with a mocking sign secretly taped to his back, he patiently endures the bullying by reminding himself that he still has Last Eden. The instant school ends, he rushes straight home and stands outside his apartment door, eager to escape reality once again. Turning the metallic lock on the door handle, he steps inside to enter the place where his true life actually takes place. That sanctuary is Last Eden, an expansive virtual fantasy game where he can throw away his real-world trauma completely. The game itself is an old classic online MRPG that existed even before he was born, and it's actually where his parents first met and married. Unfortunately, his family's happiness didn't last long, as their domestic life eventually cracked and spiraled into utter disaster. Ever since his mother introduced him to Last Eden as a child, the game became his one and only safe haven from his chaotic reality. Over time, almost the entire player base abandoned the old game, but Aram never once thought about leaving it behind. To him, every step he takes inside this virtual world feels far more real and meaningful than anything in his physical existence. Standing tall over a pile of slain monsters, Aram reigns supreme as an absolute juggernaut who can achieve anything he sets his mind to. As a warm, golden light bathes the castle courtyard, a familiar soft voice suddenly calls out his name from behind. It's the beginner guide Eve, who greets him with a sweet smile and warmly asks if he had a good day today. Now holding the title rank 1 top player in Last Eden at level 250, Aram softly greets his loyal guide back. Ever since he started playing, Eve has always stayed in this beginner zone, acting as the starting guide NPC who never moved away. While every other player quickly rushed past her and forgot she existed, Aram intentionally chose to stay by her side forever. He refused to leave her behind because Eve was the only constant presence that kept him company when he felt utterly alone in the world. Noticing his silence, Eve reaches out and gently holds his heavy gauntlet, asking if something is bothering him today. Looking up at the massive dark night, she reassuringly tells him that he can talk to her about anything whenever he feels like it. Gazing warmly into his eyes, she promises that no matter what happens, she will always remain right by his side. However, his peaceful routine is shattered when an official announcement scroll pops up, revealing that Last Eden will permanently shut down its servers on September 5, 2026. Devastated by the news of the server shutdown, Aram despairs, feeling like the world is taking another precious thing away from him. Looking at his avatar standing in the game world, he reflects on how everything he truly owns is trapped right here inside Last Eden. From vast wealth amounting to hundreds of billions of gold to countless rare items, all his hard work resides in these digital inventory slots. Reaching level 250 and securing the top rank were easily the greatest achievements of his entire life. 1. But most importantly, Last Eden was the home of Eve, his faithful guide who supported him when no one else would hear him in. With the upcoming shutdown, he faces the agonizing reality of losing his ultimate emotional pillar forever. Wishing to spend every remaining second with her, he clicks his mouse to trigger her dialogue box one last time. The familiar dialogue box pops up on screen as Eve asks her daily scripted question, wondering if he had a good day today. She follows up with her usual reassuring prompt, telling him that he can talk to her whenever something is wrong. Smiling warmly in her pixelated portrait, her program line promises that she will always stay by his side. Reading those words hits him with a bitter sting, making him quietly question how she can promise that when the game is ending. Suddenly, system alerts flood the screen, announcing that the official server shutdown process has officially begun. Overwhelmed with grief, Aram whispers that she is abandoning him too, just like his mother and father did before. The system warning flashes bright across the monitor, initiating the final 3-second countdown to complete termination. Fond memories of sitting around campfires with her flash through his mind as he cries out against being left all alone again. The countdown quickly reaches 2 seconds, drawing his beloved digital home closer to absolute deletion. Looking back at all the breathtaking vistas they explored together, he desperately wishes they could continue their journey forever. With just 1 second remaining, the bright system prompt prepares to sever his final connection to the game. Pushed to his absolute limit, Aram utters a dark, desperate wish right as the screen fades out. Looking directly at Eve's reflection in his eye, he prays that his real world could somehow transform into a game instead. Suddenly, a blinding radiance surges from his computer screen as a new system dialogue declares that the game is actually not over. Taken completely by surprise, Aram gasps in bewilderment as light engulfs his entire room. Through the glowing phenomenon, the smiling face of guide Eve appears bright and clear before him. Staring in shock at the screen, he reads the final system message inviting him to start the game together. The scene shifts to the next morning as soft sunlight streams through the open window curtains of his bedroom. Slowly raising his head off his keyboard, Aram rubs his eyes and wonders if he simply fell asleep at his desk overnight. Seeing a standard disconnect pop up on his monitor, he sighs, assuming that the strange glowing event was just a vivid dream. Shortly after, Aram arrives at school as usual, attempting to return to his mundane, everyday routine. Sliding open the classroom door, he steps inside while carrying his usual heavy, dark atmosphere. Before he can even reach his desk, an angry classmate suddenly calls out his name from across the room. Out of nowhere, the silver-haired bully aggressively confronts him, screaming at him in total fury. Shoved down by the sudden violence, Aram groans on the floor as the hostile student looms over him. The bully furiously accuses Aram of placing something bizarre on his desk, while nearby students whisper in horror. Confused and coughing on the floor, Aram asks what he means, only for the bully to double down on his furious insults. Looking past the angry student, Aram's eye glows bright blue as he notices something bizarre sitting on the bully's desk. Resting in a pool of blood on the desk is the severed head of a creature, complete with a floating game status window, reading Level 1 Goblin. Staring at the floating text window, Aram instantly recognizes the monster head as a low-level enemy directly from Last Eden. The entire classroom grows tense as Aram sits frozen on the floor, trying to comprehend how a game entity appeared in reality. Hearing Aram mutter about goblins, the surrounding students look at him like he's completely out of his mind. To everyone else in the room, the object on the desk isn't a fantasy monster at all, but simply another dead cat. Overwhelmed by rage, the silver-haired bully glares down at Aram, muttering insults about his murderer parent. Stepping closer, he viciously mocks Aram, asking if he lost his mind and failed to separate games from reality just like his mother. Grabbing Aram tightly by his collar, the bully prepares to unleash another wave of physical violence upon him. Raising his fist high into the air, the bully mockingly demands that Aram tell him what level he is supposed to be. Remaining unnervingly calm, Aram's eyes glow with a mysterious blue light as he assesses the situation. Looking straight into his attacker's eyes, Aram quietly informs the bully that he is nothing more than level 1 as well. Infuriated by Aram's calm response, the bully screams an insult and throws a full-force punch directly at his face. Before the punch can land, a slender, golden armored hand reaches out from nowhere and catches the bully's fist mid-strike. Shocked to his core, the bully panics as his wrist is held tightly, yelling out to the class to see if anyone else sees what's holding him. Digital pixelation and glitch effects distort the air as the invisible entity twists the bully's arm with overwhelming force. The bully gasps in utter disbelief as a horrifying sensation suddenly spreads throughout his trapped limb. Dark digital corruption instantly blackens his arm, decaying his flesh in a terrifying display of supernatural power. Screaming in excruciating agony, the bully drops to his knees while clutching his completely ruined, blackened arm. The classroom devolves into utter chaos as the bully writhes on the floor in unbearable pain before his terrified classmates. Panic erupts among the students as blood splatters across the room and screams echo through the halls. At the same time, the classroom display screen glitters with digital noise, displaying the mysterious silhouette of Eve. Text appears on the screen declaring that she has waited a long time and that it is finally time to fulfill their promise. Suddenly, magnificent golden wings materialize inside the classroom, blinding everyone with a holy light. Descending right before their eyes, Eve officially manifests in the real world in all her breathtaking divine form. Lying on the floor, Aram looks up in sheer astonishment as his virtual companion stands physically in front of him. Taking a deep breath, Eve smiles warmly and softly remarks on what it feels like to finally breathe the air of reality. Completely bewildered, the surviving students tremble in fear, wondering if this is somehow a movie shoot or a delusion. Suddenly, a green health bar and a level 1 status tag materialize directly above a student named Park Min-ji. Terrified screams fill the room as every single student realizes they now possess floating game levels above their heads. Ignoring the chaotic crowd, Eve turns her attention solely to Aram, softly telling him how long she waited for this moment. Hovering gently above him, she confesses with genuine joy that the mere thought of being reunited with him makes her heart race. She remembers the past when Aram was just a child who stumbled upon her in the digital wilderness. She reflects on how the game world was a repetitive prison for her, while the real world was a living hell for Aram. In truth, both of them were trapped souls seeking refuge in each other to escape their respective nightmares. A glowing blue prompt appears before Aram as Eve proposes destroying everything in their path to merge reality with the game. Standing tall, she extends an invitation to rule this newly transformed world together as a system query awaits his answer. Encouraging him, she softly reminds him that taking control won't be hard, casually bringing up how he has already died once before. A horrific flashback shows young Aram holding a bloody knife over a dead body, hinting at the tragic origin of his trauma. Hearing her bring up his deepest secret, Aram softly whispers her name as his demeanor drastically changes. His eyes flash a terrifying crimson glow as he demands to know if she knew about his past all along. A monstrous dark spectral aura erupts from his body, creating a towering shadowy figure inside the classroom. Meanwhile, the injured bully continues to sob on the floor, begging his terrified classmates to call an ambulance for his ruined arm. Before anyone can react, a massive divine blade plunges violently through the bully's back, pinning him to the floor. Gripping the hilt of his iconic level 250 sword, Aram confirms that his endgame gear has truly manifested in reality Air 1. Without a shred of hesitation, he slashes his weapon, officially executing the bully right in front of the entire class. Standing tall with his massive sword in hand, Aram looks down at the lifeless body of the bully lying in a pool of blood. With a cold, terrifying glare, he turns his glowing blue eyes back toward Eve, showing zero remorse for what he just did. Floating near the system interface, Eve softly calls out his name, seemingly taken aback by his sudden display of aggression. Recovering her composure, Eve smiles excitedly, praising his ruthless action and declaring that together they can accomplish anything. Before she can even finish her sentence, a devastating red slash cleaves directly through her divine figure. Without a second thought, Aram swings his giant blade straight at the floating system prompt, rejecting her offer entirely. A critical hit prompt flashes across the screen as his overwhelming attack lands with lethal precision. The system UI window shatters into glowing fragments, completely destroying the choice to join forces with her. Struck down by his sudden attack, Eve collapses heavily onto the floor, leaking dark energy from her wounded body. Towering over her with a menacing dark knight aura behind him, Aram cold-heartedly asks if he even needs her anymore. Smirking wickedly with his level 250 rank 1 status restored, he declares that he is already the strongest being alive Ervin's 1. Eva's headless body rests on the floor, surrounded by scattered golden feathers as her divine form begins to destabilize. Looking up at him through her cracked visage, Eve sadly asks why he would break his promise to stay by her side forever. Filled with betrayal, she asks him why he even stayed with her for so many years if he was going to turn on her now. Stepping forward in his casual slippers, Aram casually notes that high-level guide NPCs certainly don't die that easily. Looking down at her through the reflection of his blood-stained blade, Aram echoes her question with complete emotional detachment. Cruelly looking down at her kneeling figure, he reveals that she was never special to him, but merely a temporary substitute. He explains that it didn't actually have to be her, but since everyone else abandoned him, she was simply the only one left around. Pausing for a brief moment, Aram adds one more dark reason for his sudden betrayal. Meanwhile, rain pours down heavily over a high-security facility known as the Women's Prison. Inside the facility, dead guards lie scattered across bloody hallways, showing that a massacre has taken place. Aram reveals that if reality has turned into Last Eden, there is a far stronger entity in this world he would rather align himself with. Heavy armored boots stump through the bloody hallway as the mysterious former rank 1 player advances forward. Back in the classroom, Aram raises his massive sword once again to deal a final crushing blow to Eve. With a terrifying, sadistic grin on his face, he taunts Eve, telling her not to dare die from just a single strike. Bringing his massive blade down with ferocious speed, he laughs that killing her too quickly would make this game far too easy. As the lethal strike approaches her, Eve calmly closes her eyes, accepting her grim fate in silence. At the very last microsecond, Eve calmly raises her hand and snaps her fingers in a swift movement. As flowers flutter around her, she murmurs softly that in the end, Aram turned out to be just as disappointing as all the other players. A surge of overwhelming magical energy erupts directly from her fingertips, blinding the entire classroom. Revealing her true power as a game guide, Eve floats gracefully while summoning massive, terrifying boss monsters into reality. Aram's eyes widen in shock as space itself begins to crack right in front of his face. Feeling fresh blood trickle down his cheek from a stray spatial cut, Aram wipes his face with his armored gauntlet. Looking past her, Aram immediately recognizes the giant grotesque monster materializing in the room as a beginner boss from his early game days. The remaining students lose their minds in absolute terror, scrambling over broken desks as the giant abomination spawns. The grotesque creature snaps its gaping, slime-covered mouth, displaying a floating status tag that identifies it as a level 5 moisty. Without warning, one of the monster's sharp claws lunges out and violently grabs a helpless student mid-flee. Horrific screams echo through the room as the level 5 boss monster begins, brutally devouring the panicked high schoolers. Giant eerie eyeballs rumble across the ceiling, prompting the surviving students to scramble toward the classroom exit in total desperation. Utter madness erupts as students shove and trample each other at the doorway, begging for someone to save them from the nightmare. Outside the classroom windows, chaos spreads as monsters grab screaming students and drag them into the dark abyss. Unfazed by the surrounding terror, Aram charges forward and unleashes a clean, blinding slash with his massive sword. Smirking sadistically, Aram whispers the words "one" hit as he effortlessly cleaves through the spawned abominations. Delivering another swift strike, his blade slices through a monster's flesh before it can even react. The level 5 creature shrieks in agony as Aram's powerful slash splits its body completely in two. Moving like a blur across the room, Aram continues his deadly streak, eliminating every single enemy with one-hit kills. A stray goblin screeches as Aram's sword easily severs its torso in a single fluid motion. Glaring intensely at his targets, he pushes forward without slowing down, maintaining his unstoppable momentum. Observing his terrifying combat efficiency, Eve keeps a calm smile on her face as she prepares her next move. Resting his bloody sword over his shoulder, Aram looks up at her and mockingly asks if this weak assault is all she can offer. Standing atop a mound of slaughtered beasts, he taunts her, asking if she truly thought such low-level trash mobs could harm him. Reaching out with a subtle smile, Eve playfully touches his forehead, asking if he is truly that confident. Her eyes flashing with divine power, she remarks that a game without an actual challenge wouldn't be any fun at all. With a light flick of her finger, she triggers a spatial wave that sends shockwaves directly through Aram's mind. Instantly, Aram is teleported away from the classroom and finds himself standing before a massive, ornate door on a field of white flowers. Looking around in utter confusion, Aram tries to figure out where he was just transported to. Inspecting the grand structure, he realizes that this massive gate is the iconic entrance to Last Eden itself. Dark purple mist swirls ominously around the area as system notification letters begin to materialize in the air. Gripping his massive sword, Aram readies himself as the system officially heralds the start of Round 2. Grotesque high-level bosses emerge from the shadows, featuring intimidating status windows like the level 50, 810 million foot tribe. Looming large over his position, the towering boss monsters encircle Aram in a menacing display of strength. A system screen flashes in his mind as Eve's avatar pops up, cheekily asking how he likes her special setup. She boasts that she prepared this boss gauntlet especially for him, prompting Aram to accept her challenge with a grin. Swinging his sword with incredible force, Aram releases a massive wave of sword light directly into the horde. Spinning his weapon overhead, he prepares to unleash a named offensive skill from his endgame arsenal. A skill UI displays the apple slash ability as Aram smirks, excited to finally utilize actual skill attacks in this world. Slicing through the massive boss, Aram casually questions if this weak wave is truly the best she can do. Stepping smoothly through falling petals, he points out that these bosses are no different from the mobs he easily farmed before. Eva's text box appears to correct him, informing Aram that this boss gauntlet was only round 1. Hearing her words, Aram looks up toward the sky as the surrounding environment begins to shift once again. Red system teshes across the field, officially inaugurating round 2 as a massive chained entity emerges. Bound by heavy chains, a level 100 horse-like boss creature unleashes a terrifying roar as it steps onto the field. Alongside it, another powerful boss monster breaks free from its bindings, ready to join the fray. Crackling electrical energy shatters the remaining dimensional chains, unleashing an overwhelming wave of malice. The monstrous abomination opens its gaping jaw, letting out a deafening screech that shakes the entire realm. Without showing a single moment of hesitation, Aram leaps directly into the air toward the roaring beast. Slicing the level 100 boss completely in half, the system instantly announces that round 2 has been cleared. Wiping blood off his cheek with his gauntlet, Aram ponders why these boss monsters are appearing one after another. Gazing up at dozens of floating monitor screens, Aram grows impatient and demands that Eve send every single round at him all at once. In response to his arrogant demand, all the floating monitor screens shatter simultaneously, preparing to unleash total chaos. A chaotic clash erupts as giant monster horns and sharp claws collide with explosive force. Surrounded on all sides by dozens of portal screens, Aram stands alone as an endless wave of monsters swarms toward him. Bracing his weapon against the onslaught, Aram blocks an incoming strike while evaluating the situation. A sadistic grin spreads across his face as he mockingly asks if this endless swarm is truly all she can muster against him. Leaping into the air, Aram unleashes a massive horizontal slash, cleaving through every monster in his sightline. System notifications flash in rapid succession, announcing that round 3, round 4, and round 5 have all been cleared in seconds. Slamming down from above, he crushes another boss monster into dust with a devastating impact wave. Descending gracefully through the air in full Dark Knight armor, Aram keeps his gaze locked forward. He taunts Eve directly, asking if she honestly believed a wave of this caliber could ever stop him. Sweeping his blade across the battlefield, Aram decimates entire ranks of monsters in a flash of blinding light. Raising his glowing blade over his shoulder, Aram smirks as he senses a sudden change beneath his feet. Looking down, he notices a secondary dimensional crack opening beneath the floor, realizing there are even more enemies hidden below. A colossal shadowy jaws monster suddenly snaps upward from below, catching Aram directly inside its lethal bite. Instead of panicking, Aram lets out a creepy laugh, genuinely enjoying the rare sensation of actually taking damage. A disturbing memory flashes in his mind of his father beating him, making Aram psychotically ponder if his dad lived for the same thrill. He remembers his mother stepping in to strike his father back, recalling the violent household environment he grew up in. Throwing his head back, Aram bursts into hysterical laughter, completely drunk on the thrill of battle. System windows flash continuously as stage 17 is cleared, with Eve noting that his absurd power was expected. Bypassing stage after stage, stage 30, one is cleared in seconds as Eve admits that he is far too strong. Rapid, glitch notifications flood the screen of blur as Aram blitzes through dozens of boss stages back to back. Finally, the system heralds the last stage as Aram stands triumphant atop a colossal pile of defeated bosses. Landing gracefully back onto the field of white flowers, he completes his absolute slaughter. Looking around the silent field, Aram mocks her efforts, laughing that her summoned bosses were pathetic because she is just a beginner guide NPC. A final dialogue box pops up behind him as Eve solemnly warns Aram that this is his absolute last chance. Showing a memory of her holding his hand as a child, she begs him to return to the peaceful days they used to share. She offers him one final choice to join Last Eden and spend eternity together by her side. Once again, Aram responds without hesitation, shattering the system interface to pieces with a decisive sword strike. Her pixelated face severely glitches and cracks as Eve cold-heartedly states that he has thrown away his final mercy. Grinning like a villain, Aram dismisses her warning as nothing more than meaningless, noisy rambling. However, a second later, Aram's eye widens as he notices something bizarre happening around them. Looking up in shock, he sees the sky literally cracking open, revealing the planet Earth floating in outer space. Looking down at him with glowing red eyes, Eve sternly declares that this catastrophic destruction is the direct result of his choice. Shaken by her words, Aram gasps in utter confusion, asking what she means by that. As fatal system error messages cover the sky above human cities, Eve explains that she originally planned to create a private paradise for just the two of them. But the moment Aram betrayed her trust, she abandoned that dream and resolved to take far more drastic measures. Dimensional rifts tear open globally as Eve reveals her nuclear option, merging every other online game in existence into reality to crush him. On the streets below, terrified citizens point toward the sky in disbelief as countless video game characters rain down on the city. Suddenly, digital pixelation sweeps over everyday people, instantly transforming their clothes into fantasy game avatars. Another girl gasps in shock as her body transforms into her personal gaming avatar, complete with her online gear. Giant news billboards across the city broadcast emergency alerts, reporting that game entities and avatar transformations are sweeping the entire nation. On the news, an anchor solemnly reports that citizens across various regions are having their physical appearances transformed into game characters. As the boundary between reality and games completely collapses, players from other online titles begin waking up to their new reality. Among them is Jang Han, the former rank 1 top player of a rhythm game called Star Beat, standing quietly amidst the chaos. Hearing Eve bring up the arrival of other top-ranked players, Aram grips his sword and considers the new threat. Unbothered by the arrival of other rankers, Aram cold-heartedly declares that he will simply slaughter every single one of them. Eve smiles softly at his arrogant claim, calmly questioning whether he will actually be capable of accomplishing that feat. Suddenly, Aram's endgame weapon and armor begin glitching and dissolving into pixels right before his eyes. System text flashes across his vision, initiating a forced character deletion and resetting his status back to level 1. With a sinister smirk, Eve cold-heartedly declares that there is no paradise remaining for a traitor like him. Stripped of his level 250 status, Aram looks down at his bare hands in utter disbelief as his level drops to level 1 Hun. Transforming into a dark fallen entity with glowing red eyes, she commands him to fight for survival in the hell he chose. Explosions rock the city's skyline as the true nightmare officially begins under the title Hell Login. Looking out over the burning city ruins, Aram desperately asks where his endgame character and stats went. Panicking on the floor, he asks what happened to all his hard-earned items and high levels that took him years to accumulate. Dark Eve looks down at him coldly, explaining that because he betrayed their contract, she revoked his privileges. With complete emotional detachment, she informs him that she personally wiped his account and reset his character from scratch. Smirking at his pathetic state, she revels in stripping away the only thing that made him powerful. Mocking his current state, she taunts him to try starting over from the very beginning as a worthless level 1 weakling. She scoffs at him, thoroughly enjoying his complete downfall from top ranker to powerless high schooler. Covering his face with his hands, Aram suddenly bursts into uncontrollable, manic laughter right in front of her. Uncovering his face, he smirks maniacally at her, asking what she honestly expects him to do about a simple character reset. Standing back up in his school uniform, Aram casually steps onto a cute mushroom monster that spawned on the classroom floor. Without a second thought, he crushes the weak mushroom monster under his slipper with a heavy stomp. A level up notification instantly pops up as he reaches level 2, making Aram smile wildly since this reality is still a game world. Dark Eve gasps softly in surprise, caught off guard by his insane adaptability and unyielding madness. Immediately leveling up to level 3, Aram charges forward to hunt down the next target in the room. Laughing hysterically, he relishes the process of building his strength up from absolute rock bottom all over again. Watching him closely, Dark Eve brings up his earlier comment where he mockingly asked if this was all she had. Ignoring her words, Aram lunges across the ruined classroom, reaching out to grab a tool from the corner. Suddenly, Aram reacts as a giant shadow looms over his position from behind. A heavy impact slams into him, knocking the level 3 teenager onto the blood-stained floor. Coughing on the ground, Aram looks up to see what kind of powerful monster just attacked him. Dark Eve smirks coldly from above, deciding to test his limits even further. She spawns a level 45 giant Chokshuki boss over him, eager to witness how helpless he is without his endgame gear. Staring up at the high-level boss looming over him, Aram shows no fear whatsoever in his glowing blue eyes. The massive boss monster grows menacingly, raising its razor-sharp claws to crush the level 3 human. Dodging backward across the floor, Aram chuckles to himself as he prepares his counter strategy. Smirking calmly, he mutters that he knew she would pull a stunt like this to break his spirit. Reaching into the corner of the classroom, Aram grips the metal handle of a cleaning mop. With a swift motion, he snaps the mop head off, turning the blunt handle into an improvised spear as he accepts the challenge. Holding the broken mop firmly in both hands, Aram smirks as he readies himself to play the game again. Tightening his grip around the wooden handle, he prepares to strike with everything he's got. Charging forward, Aram thrusts the sharp wooden pole straight into the monster's soft underbelly. The level 45 boss shrieks in pain as Aram's precise thrust pierces its vulnerable spot. Although his low-level attacks deal minimal damage, Aram easily dodges its counter-attacks because he knows all of its attack patterns by heart. Smiling with quiet confidence, he relies on his years of gaming experience to outmaneuver the beast. Watching him effortlessly dodge every attack, Dark Eve realizes that this fight is still far too easy for a veteran player like him. Suddenly, the wooden mop handle snaps under the heavy pressure of the boss's counter-strike. His makeshift weapon shatters into useless splinters, leaving Aram completely defenseless. Blown back by the impact, he slides across the ruined floor as the giant monster closes in for the kill. Wiping sweat from his brow, Aram chuckles that the wooden pole broke much faster than he anticipated. Standing right before the gaping maw of the beast, he calmly questions if a level 3 character simply lacks the stats to go any further. Before he can move, the massive creature clamps its heavy claws onto Aram, pinning him helplessly to the ground. Crushing pressure grinds against his bones as the boss monster attempts to tear him apart. Refusing to give up, Aram repeatedly stabs the jagged remains of the broken mop into the beast's flesh, dealing a mere 1 point of damage with each strike. Swatting him like a fly, the monster growls as Aram angrily curses at the low-level mobs. The beast snaps its jaws around him, making Aram glare in frustration at his current physical weakness. Overwhelmed by sheer numbers, Aram screams in pain as multiple monster claws pin his body to the shattered floor. Looking down at his bleeding figure, Dark Eve asks if he finally understands his helpless reality. Sitting over his crushed body, she cold-heartedly reminds him that he is absolutely nothing without her divine support. Even while pinned under massive claws, Aram smirks back up at her, asking if she truly believes he is helpless without her. Annoyed by his unyielding arrogance, Dark Eve glares down at him in cold silence. Deciding to abandon him to his fate, she turns her back and tells him to try surviving on his own. Dissolving into dark pixelated feathers, she confidently declares that he will eventually come crawling back to her. Vanishing completely from the classroom, she leaves him alone to die at the hands of the boss monster. The giant monster growls, pressing its full weight down to crush Aram into a bloody pulp. Lying bloodied on his back, Aram smirks at the ceiling, muttering that the real fun is only just beginning now that she's gone. The boss monster opens its massive jaws wide, preparing to swallow Aram whole in one bite. Suddenly, Aram's eye flashes with a complex blue magic circle pattern, reflecting his true hidden power as he remembers his past. A fleeting memory of his mother holding a knife in the dark flashes through his mind. Out of nowhere, the girl with silver hair and headphones upside down looks down at him, asking if he is okay. Opening his eye in surprise, Aram gasps as an unexpected stranger steps into the fight. Standing behind the giant monster, Jang Hyun notes with relief that she arrived just in time to save him. Raising her hand like a gun, the star beat rank 1 player aims directly at the noisy monster. Glowing rhythm game tracks materialize beneath her fingers as she casually adjusts the difficulty level for her attack. A massive rhythmic beam slams down like a falling game note, crushing the giant boss monster instantly. The impact pulverizes the level 45 boss into dust, freeing Aram from its heavy grip. Coughing violently, Aram pushes himself off the floor, amazed by the sudden display of power. Glaring up at the mysterious girl through his dark bangs, Aram demands to know who she is. Surrounded by floating rhythm game notes and music bars, Jang Hyun officially reveals her presence as a top ranker from another game. A rhythm game interface pops up on screen as Jang Hyun selects the song Flower Dance to initiate her next attack. Striking the falling notes in perfect rhythm, she sends massive shockwaves crashing down onto the target. The rhythmic energy impacts with heavy force, driving the giant monster back as it screeches in pain. Watching the rhythm game interface manifest in reality, Aram remembers Eve's warning about players from other games arriving. Staring at her glowing headset, he realizes that the girl in front of him is indeed a top ranker from another online game. Her hands move with blinding speed across her virtual rhythm keys, building up a massive 175-hit combo. As her combo count skyrockets past 312, continuous beams of rhythmic energy pummel the monster. Reaching nearly 600 hits without a single error, her overwhelming performance leaves Aram in total awe. Achieving a perfect all-combo streak, a giant pillar of golden light erupts, obliterating everything in its path. As the blinding explosion clears, Jang Hyun stands victorious among the smoke while Aram remains seated on the floor. The level 45 boss monster is completely pulverized, reduced to nothing more than a pile of shattered rubble. Turning back toward Aram, she gently extends her hand to offer him a helping hand off the ground. Looking down at him, she warmly announces that she has finally managed to find him after searching for so long. Officially revealed as the rank 1 player of Star Beat, Jang Hyun smiles softly into Aram. She's been looking for him forever every heaven. Instead of thanking her, Aram cold-heartedly asks who she thinks she is to interrupt his fight, threatening to kill her. Flustered by his hostility, Jang Hyun blushes nervously and scratches her cheek, explaining that she only wanted to help. Still stuck at level 3, Aram sighs in frustration, complaining that his fight was just starting to get fun before she stepped in. Frustrated by her interference, Aram grips the broken floor tile beneath him as he tries to stand. Looking up with empty blue eyes, he mutters that having someone else steal his kill makes everything completely boring. His dark silhouette shifts as he turns his head toward Jang Hyun with a dangerous aura. But before he can take a single step forward, Aram's exhausted body gives out and he collapses face first onto the floor. Caught off guard by his sudden collapse, Jang Hyun gasps in surprise and rushes to his side. Kneeling down next to his unconscious body, she panics, wondering why he suddenly passed out of nowhere. Gently lifting his head off the cold floor, she looks at his pale face in sheer worry, hoping nothing terrible happened to him. Cupping his bruised cheeks in her hands, she desperately pleads for Aram to wake up and open his eyes. Sweating anxiously, she whispers that he can't possibly die here after everything they've been through. Flashbacks of his painful struggles blur together as a loud thud echoes through her mind while she panics. Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through Jang Hyun. Head as spatial cracks tear open the surrounding classroom walls. Hearing loud footsteps approaching outside, a student peeking into the room screams at everyone to run for their lives. Peeking out from behind the damaged locker, Jang Hyun nervously tries to figure out what new threat has arrived. In the hallway outside, a chaotic stampede of panicked students and game avatars flee from a terrifying force. A muscular game avatar gets brutally slashed across the chest, spraying blood as a powerful enemy cuts through the crowd. Emerging from the bloodbath is a menacing warrior clad in dark armor, his red visor glowing with pure malice. Without showing a single shred of mercy, the dark armor knight decapitates a fleeing student in a single flash of light. Screaming in terror, a cat-eared girl crawls frantically across the floor to escape the unstoppable killer behind her. Clinging to her life, her large animal paws scrape against the blood-stained floor tiles. Looming over a trembling figure in the doorway, the Dark Knight stops as she asks if he belongs to her class. Jang Hyun watches from hiding as the status window above her head reveals her identity to the killer. Identified as level 230, rank 17 player Kang Jaein from Animal Fighter, she tearfully begs the killer for mercy, claiming they are friends. The Dark Knight stares down at her with cold, unfeeling eyes, quietly repeating the word friends with pure contempt. With a twisted grin and bloodshot eyes, the red-haired enemy maniacally shouts out, claiming to know what they truly are. But before the word friends can fully leave his mouth, a sudden, deadly beam of red light slices him straight down the middle. The strike is an instant kill, immediately awarding our protagonist a massive chunk of over 800,000 experience points. Standing right beside him, the white-haired girl freezes in utter shock as blood splatters violently across her face. Standing tall in his heavy dark armor, Han Aram casually admires the massive amount of sweet experience he just scored. The gained experience immediately triggers a system overflow, causing his rank display to glitch out as his level rises once more. Just like that, a golden system icon pops up, officially declaring him level 250 and placing him at the very top as rank 1. Clenching his armored fist, he smugly notes to himself that investing time into building an alt character was completely worth it. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl just stares at him with wide, bewildered eyes, totally speechlessly trying to process what happened. Grinning with a blood-splattered face, Han Aram declares that with his max level secured, it's finally time to start the real main game. The scene suddenly shifts to a grim memory of the past, focusing on a half-eaten, rotting apple sitting on a cold plate. Lying weak and battered on the floor, young Aram's mother gasps for air as she faintly calls out her son's name. Young Aram lies on the ground nearby, silently staring back at his suffering mother with intense, cold blue eyes. Looking toward his mother, young Aram chillingly asks if she wants him to just kill his abusive father for her. Glancing over at the computer screen running Last Eden, he innocently reasons that since killing monsters in games is so easy, taking down his own father in real life shouldn't be any harder than defeating a digital enemy. Horrified by her young son's dark thoughts, his mother weakly reaches out and begs him not to say such terrifying things. Tears stream down her bruised face as she desperately tries to rationalize the situation, claiming his father isn't a monster. Looking toward the broken family photo and empty liquor bottles scattered across the floor, she insists he's just having a hard time. Even while covered in painful cuts and bruises, she forces a gentle smile onto her face to keep her son from worrying. Tenderly resting her trembling hand on top of young Aram's head, she tries to offer him whatever comfort and warmth she can. Pulling the boy into a tight embrace on the filthy floor, she tearfully promises that she will always protect him no matter what. Back in the present, the white-haired girl bursts into tears and tightly hugs Aram's heavy armor while he stands completely still. Clinging desperately to his chest plate, she whimpers through her tears, admitting she genuinely believed he had died. But Aram doesn't return the affection at all, glaring down at her with cold eyes and telling her she's been getting on his nerves. Without any hesitation, he violently grabs her armor collar and shoves her backward, catching her completely off guard. Holding her firmly in place, Aram demands to know who she thinks she is to keep following him around and prying into his life. Stuttering nervously, the girl stammers that she only watched him from afar because she felt they shared a similar kind of pain. A soft smile touches her lips as she admits that her only true intention from the beginning was to help him out. She explains that she wanted to protect him from the people who looked down on him, recalling dark memories of mistreatment. Hearing her bizarre justification, Aram's expression twitches into a chilling, unhinged smile. Slowly raising his massive greatsword, he realizes with dark amusement that she was behind things all along. The white-haired girl gasps in shock, backing away as she senses the terrifying murder intent radiating directly from him. Leaning in close with a cold, ruthless smirk, Aram tells her there's something he's really curious to test out. He menacingly ponders how long a high-tier ranker like her can actually survive under his attacks, leaving her completely stunned. Outside, the calm sky frames the crumbling academy building, blissfully unaware of the danger unfolding inside. Suddenly, the upper windows violently shatter outward as a massive burst of force erupts through the glass. The girl frantically runs for her life, desperately yelling for Aram to wait as the relentless armored warrior closes in behind her. Aram swoops down on her like an unstoppable predator, completely ignoring her desperate pleas to stop and listen to her. She screams out in pure terror one last time, desperately begging him to hear her out before his lethal attack strikes. The girl tumbles back and lands hard on the floor with a painful cry, completely thrown off balance by his attack. Panicking, she scrambles backward just in time as Aram's deadly slash rips straight through the ground right in front of her. Aram leaps down from above like a relentless phantom, swinging his giant blade with enough force to obliterate the room. As Aram presses his ruthless assault, he notices something remarkably strange about the way she moves. Even though her dodges look totally awkward and clumsy on the surface, she's actually dodging every single blow with immaculate timing. Realizing she isn't just some helpless victim getting lucky, Aram's icy gaze darkens even further with annoyance. Irritated by her unnatural evasiveness, Aram unleashes another blinding slash, shouting out how annoying she's being. The air shatters under the pressure of his sword strike as the massive weapon hurtles straight toward her head. Barely managing to avoid a fatal blow, she touched her damaged ear device in shock as a cut bleeds on her cheek. Gathering glowing blue energy around his dark gauntlet, Aram demands to know why she refuses to fight back properly. Frustrated that she keeps playing defensive and running away, Aram prepares to unleash a heavy skill to force her hand. Activating his high-tier blade skill Silver Rain, Aram floats above the arena as a circle of glowing swords manifests around him. Looking down at her like a cold executioner, Aram warns her one last time to take this battle seriously and fight back. A ruthless storm of glowing energy blades rains down, smashing into the ground around her as she cowers in absolute terror. Even as destruction erupts all around her, she desperately raises her finger, trying to explain herself to him. Sparkles of light gather at her fingertip as she screams out that she genuinely has no desire to fight him. A massive glittering rhythm game magic circle expands beneath her, deflecting every single sword raining from the sky. Surprised by the sudden appearance of this bizarre defensive field, Aram carefully analyzes her strange ability. Watching his heavy energy blades bounce off one by one, he wonders if her skill is strictly meant for defense. Meanwhile, the girl is frantically tapping away at glowing rhythm notes popping up all around her in complete panic. Her fingers move at insane speeds to maintain a 500+ combo, complaining that she's never faced a pattern this hard. Seeing her put all her effort into just blocking his moves, Aram's face darkens with deep disappointment. In the blink of an eye, Aram bypasses her defense and appears right behind her shoulder, whispering that a fight like this is boring. Her eyes widen in pure horror as she feels his cold breath right behind her neck. Before she can even react to his presence, a violent collision shakes the entire room. Aram's eyes narrow as magical sparks and colorful star effects suddenly burst out around her body. Blocking his strike with her own glowing sword, she reveals her true identity as Jang Hyuna, the rank 1 player from Rhythm Savers. Realizing she's actually a top-ranking player from another game, Aram's face twists into a thrilled, psychotic smile. Overjoyed that he finally found a worthy opponent who can actually fight back, Aram gets completely exhilarated. Their weapons collide with immense power, sending massive shockwaves tearing through the entire building. The sheer force of their clash detonates the top floors of the academy, shooting a giant beam of energy into the sky. On the streets below, terrified students and bystanders run for their lives as the explosion rocks the ground. Among the fleeing crowd, a dark-winged woman, a crown and gothic dress, watches the explosion in utter bewilderment. Looking up at the shattered building, she senses a terrifying level of magical power radiating from above. High above the ruins, Aram and Jang Hyuna trade blinding high-speed blows, magical sparks flying with every hit. The dark-winged woman gapes in utter disbelief as she realizes the true nature of the fight happening above. Meanwhile, Aram fights with pure joy, thrilled to discover that another player managed to bring an alt character into this world. Reaching out her hand toward Aram in the distance, the dark-winged woman sinisterly resolves to simply reset his character. But as soon as she attempts to execute the deletion command, a bright red system error pops up stating the character cannot be deleted. Staring at the system rejection notice in total disbelief, the dark-winged woman freezes, completely unable to comprehend what just happened. Watching from nearby, an unshaven man in a plaid shirt remarks on how fascinating Aram is, noting that normal NPC abilities have no effect on him. Smirking casually, he points out that Aram clearly wasn't created on her server, explaining why her system commands failed. Caught off guard, the dark-winged woman turns toward the stranger and demands to know his identity. With a creepy smile spreading across his face, the mysterious man repeats her question back to her. Suddenly, dark wings burst out from his neck as he reveals he's actually an NPC summoned into reality because of her actions. In a gruesome display, a suave blonde man tears his way out of the host's body, complaining about how gross it was inside a gambling addict. The dark-winged woman watches in utter shock as blood splatters everywhere from the gruesome sight. Stepping out completely covered in blood, the handsome blonde man lets out a sigh of relief as he takes his true form. Looming shadows wrap around the ruined landscape as he approaches her with an overwhelming aura of authority. Adjusting his suit, he casually steps forward and addresses her directly by the name Nemesis. Revealed as the NPC dealer from Gold Jackpot, he thanks Nemesis for unwittingly allowing him to cross over into the real world. Standing among the shattered rubble of the academy, the two monstrous entities face each other in silent tension. Smirking at her helpless state, the dealer mockingly notes that Nemesis appears to have lost all control of her situation. Unable to deny his words, Nemesis looks up at him with an expression of pure distress and frustration. He likens her desperate plight to a reckless gambler who just lost every single chip at the table. Infuriated by his mocking tone, Nemesis snaps back at him, furiously telling him to shut his mouth. Unbothered by her outburst, the dealer casually fans out a deck of glowing playing cards, claiming he's actually here to help her. Displaying cards marked with sinister noose symbols, he offers to turn her into a powerful ranker since she currently lacks one. He explains that his own rankers keep changing constantly like a high-stakes gamble, so partnering up makes total sense. Holding up a glowing ace card, he declares his intention to forge his very own customized ranker from scratch. As magical cards circle them in the air, he proposes a deal, admitting he'd rather not get wiped out by Aram anytime soon. Flashing cards showing ordinary people like farmers and soccer players, he boasts that manipulating a single target is child's play for him. He explains that people who escape from their painful real lives by hiding in video games are the easiest to influence. Pointing to a card depicting a bedridden hospital patient, he notes that broken people can be completely undone with a single mental push. Showcasing various tragic life scenarios on his cards, he decides to place his very first bet on Nemesis. Nemesis watches him quietly, clearly tempted by the dangerous opportunity being presented to her. Holding out a glowing card toward her, he asks if she's ready to accept his penalty-free deal. The scene suddenly shifts to a busy city highway jammed with bumper-to-bumper traffic and blaring horns. Inside one of the cars, a driver wearing glasses groans in frustration as traffic grinds to a complete halt. He brings up the bizarre news reports about video game rankers invading reality, wondering if that's what's causing the massive traffic jam. Laughing it off, he assumes the crazy footage on the news was just realistic AI video fooling gullible viewers. The woman in the passenger seat jokes along, teasing that if video games were real, her own son would have taken over the world by now. The driver smirks, jokingly saying that if this really were a game, he would have just cleared out all this traffic in a second. But before he can even finish his joke, a sudden terrifying sound shatters the air, making his eyes widen in panic. Out of nowhere, massive shockwaves tear through the highway, sending heavy automobiles flying into the sky like toys. Through his windshield, the terrified driver sees a red racing cart speeding down the highway at insane speeds. The demonic red cart blasts straight down the wrong lane, plowing through traffic without slowing down for a second. A glowing speed booster icon ignites behind the cart, triggering an explosive burst of momentum. Rocketing forward at hyperspeed, the cart violently smashes through every vehicle in its path, creating total carnage on the highway. The highway is left in absolute ruins with burning wreckage, leaving the injured driver trapped beneath his flipped car and groaning in pain. Speeding past city skyscrapers on his red racing cart, the masked racer sighs in satisfaction, thrilled to finally unleash his speed again. Feeling the wind rushing past his helmet, he marvels at how exhilarating it feels to be genuinely alive. A dark flashback reveals his past as the Butcher class advancement, where victory was always determined purely by speed. Meanwhile, back at the ruined academy grounds, Han Aram and Jang Hyuna stand facing each other in a tense standoff. Jang Hyuna lowers her stance slightly, trying to convince Aram that he's completely misjudging her intentions to help him. Aram scoffs back at her in disbelief, mockingly asking if she honestly believes someone of her level could ever help him. Taking a heavy step forward in his dark armor, he cold-heartedly dismisses her as nothing more than a plaything. Before their fight can resume, the red racing cart violently drifts right into the courtyard, kicking up massive clouds of dust. Aram's glowing blue eye narrows sharply as he glances sideways to see who dared interrupt their battle. The red cart drifts in a tight, menacing circle directly around both Aram and Jang Hyuna, leaving deep tire marks in the dirt. Aram turns his head to track the cart's movement, clearly unbothered by the sudden intrusion. Yahello gasps in utter confusion, staring at the bizarre horned racer who just crashed their duel. Bringing his cart to a halt, the horned racer addresses Aram directly, asking if he's the infamous Han Aram. The cart's rear tires spin wildly against the pavement, letting out a roaring engine rev as flames flicker from the exhaust. Gripping his steering wheel tight, the Death Racing player wonders if he should unleash his full power right away. Looking Aram up and down, the racer reiterates his question with a cocky, challenging tone. Sparks and smoke erupt from his tires as he prepares to launch his cart at full force. Revealed as lightning speed, the level 250 rank 1 player from Death Racing, he taunts Aram to test his maximum velocity. Accelerating in a flash, lightning speed circles around like a red blur, generating intense gusts of wind. Planted firmly on the ground, Aram sets the tip of his giant sword down, completely unamused by the circus act. With effortless single-handed strength, Aram raises his massive blade into position to meet the incoming charge. As the cart rockets straight toward him, Aram openly scoffs, questioning if this pathetic gimmick driver is actually considered a ranker. Hearing Aram call a top ranker total trash, Yahello stammers in disbelief while Aram wonders how these pests keep tracking him down. Infuriated by Aram's condescending remarks, lightning speed grips his wheel tightly and snaps back at him. Screeching across the blood-stained pavement, the racer boasts that Aram is about to be flattened into roadkill under his wheels. Looking at the incoming racer with cold, vacant eyes, Aram nonchalantly mentions that the driver smells strangely repulsive. A dark smile creeps back onto Aram's face as he admits that fighting another ranker might offer him a quick moment of entertainment. The red cart slams directly into Aram's blade at top speed, causing a massive explosion of light and force. Watching the insane collision unfold right before her eyes, Yahello gasps in utter horror. Pushing his engine to its absolute limit against Aram's sword, lightning speed arrogantly tells Aram to keep talking smack. The glaring light of their head-on clash reflects intensely off the helmet's polished visor. Holding the roaring cart back without yielding an inch, Aram calmly acknowledges that the racer certainly possesses high speed. Staring right into the driver's eyes, Aram coldly asks if raw speed is truly the only thing he is going for him. Refusing to accept defeat, lightning speed backs up and charges forward again, trailing intense fairy tire tracks. Steering aggressively, the racer admits that Aram is the first human capable of blocking his full-speed crash head-on. He unleashes a barrage of high-speed ramming attacks, shouting out to see how long Aram can possibly endure the pressure. Standing like an immovable mountain in the center of the storm, Aram effortlessly blocks every single impact without shifting his stance. With an expression of pure boredom, Aram lets out a quiet sigh as he easily deflects the continuous ramming attacks. His swirling blue eyes glint with dangerous disappointment as he reaches his limit of patience. Raising his massive greatsword high into the air with overwhelming dark energy, Aram cold-bloodedly declares that the racer is completely boring. System text introduces the counter-strike skill, which delivers a perfect counterattack at the cost of heavy weapon durability. Aram executes a massive counterattack arc, slamming directly into the red cart and forcing a grunt of pain from the driver. Scratching his cheek with a disappointed sigh, Aram tells the driver he expected far more from a ranker, calling him a pesky fly. Taking offense to the insult, the horned racer mutters that calling him a fly is way too harsh. Shifting gears aggressively, the racer boasts that he has only just begun to rev up his engine. His speedometer gauge ignites into flames, maxing out as his vehicle gathers insane speed. The red cart erupts into a streak of fire, shooting past Aram at blinding speeds that crack the very ground. Aram tilts his head in mild surprise, noting that a red blur just zoomed past his vision. Drifting effortlessly around Aram, the racer brags that he still has one final boost left in his tank. With his boost gauge completely filled, the driver threatens to grind Aram's entire body into dust. Seeing the fatal threat, Yahello steps between them, conjuring her glowing rhythm shield to protect Aram. Sweat dripping down her cheek, she tells Aram she promised not to interfere, but this oncoming attack looks far too dangerous. Realizing she spotted an attack that was practically invisible, Aram grins madly, realizing Yahello will be a fun opponent later. Stepping up beside her, Aram sternly warns her that this is his battle and commands her not to interfere. Smiling like a demon, Aram adds that she shouldn't worry because she's next in line once he finishes off the driver. Misinterpreting their exchange, the racer shouts that coming at him two-on-one is totally cowardly. Aram's glowing eye sharpens as he analyzes the driver's mechanics, noting how he referred to his skill as a boost. He analyzes the game rules, realizing that using drift skills actively builds up the driver's boost gauge. Determining his counter strategy, Aram decides his top priority is to stop the driver from building up any more boost. Aram leaps forward and slams his blade downward into the ground with explosive force. Swerving around the slash effortlessly, the driver scoffs, boasting that Aram's strike is far too slow to disrupt his drift. But Aram's glowing eye remains completely calm and focused, unaffected by the taunts. Aram continuously drags his giant blade through the pavement, carving massive grooves into the earth around the racing path. The cart's tires begin to wobble violently as it hits the deep cracks and grooves carved into the ground. Gripping the wheel in surprise, the driver realizes Aram is intentionally destroying the track terrain. Laughing maniacally, the driver keeps talking trash, mocking Aram for having slow attacks and relying solely on blocks. Ignoring the taunts, Aram methodically finishes carving a massive, intricate pattern across the entire arena floor. Finally, Aram plunges his heavy greatsword deep into the center of the carved ground. Powerful energy ripples through the newly carved grooves, spreading across the entire battlefield. Declaring that he has the perfect counter skill for a runaway speedster, Aram activates his trap, catching the driver off guard. The ground beneath the carved pattern crumbles and collapses inward, erupting with dark, necrotic energy. Looking down in utter shock, the driver realizes too late that the lines Aram drew were a massive magic spell. Fissures tear open everywhere, instantly creating a giant pit beneath the cart's wheels. Reflected in Aram's icy blue eye, the red cart plunges headfirst into the collapsing dark abyss. System notifications reveal Aram's Mortician-class skill, Enconfining, which buries enemies alive to restrict their movement. Uttering the skill's name, Aram seals the entire area into a massive underground tomb, trapping the racing cart inside. The red cart tumbles helplessly down into the pitch-black abyss as heavy boulders bury it from above. Looking down into the dark grave, Aram cold-bloodedly notes that once buried underground, he'll never be able to run again. Complete darkness engulfs the bottom of the pit as the earth seals shut completely. But suddenly, two glaring headlights ignite in the pitch-black darkness as a roaring engine revs back to life. Suddenly, an explosive beam of energy erupts straight out of the earth, destroying the entire tomb spell in a single instant. Rocketing into the air on his wind racing cart, the driver mocks Aram, calling him a complete rookie. Glaring down at them, the driver arrogantly declares that racing isn't something confined to just the ground. With a massive sonic boom, the cart shoots into the sky like a rocket, ascending high into the atmosphere. Plunging back down toward Aram at terminal velocity, he ridicules Aram for being weak and embarrassingly slow. Unfazed by the aerial assault, Aram blocks the crashing blow and retorts that the driver loves to run his mouth way too much. Aram smirks mockingly, pointing out that someone who relies on a vehicle doesn't even have the right to talk about real speed. The driver's eyes widen inside his helmet as he realizes Aram has been setting him up all along. A dark memory flashes through the driver's mind of a real-world car crash where he tragically lost his mobility. Gritting his teeth in frustration, the driver lets out a bitter groan as his dark past is poked at. Enraged beyond belief, the driver maxes out his boost gauge, roaring in fury at Aram's disrespect. Channeling all his kinetic energy into one point, the driver slams his cart down into Aram's blade with catastrophic force. Watching the blinding inferno engulf the battlefield from afar, Jang Hyuna gasps in sheer shock. As flames wash across the cracked earth, she nervously calls out Aram's name, wondering if he survived the blast. Emerging from the fire, the driver continues pushing his vehicle against Aram's greatsword with relentless hatred. Pressing his machine hard against Aram's weapon, the driver mockingly asks if Aram has given up on stopping his boost skills. As his greatsword begins to crack under the strain of counter-strike, Aram calmly admits that trying to stop the boost was totally pointless. As his massive blade shatters into fragments, Aram casually taunts the driver, stating that even at full speed, he's still painfully slow. Furious that Aram is still looking down on him, the driver roars in pure rage. The vehicle's system enters maximum output mode, overflowing with intense flames. The resulting blast unleashes a massive shockwave that demolishes the surrounding city buildings. Down on the city streets, terrified citizens scream and scatter as heavy debris rains down from the sky. Flawlessly dodging the flying destruction and blood, Jang Hyuna sighs in relief that she didn't get caught in the impact. Dusting herself off, she complains about almost getting blood on her clothes, wondering what crazy tactic Aram is pulling off. Looking up at a nearby skyscraper with a clean circular hole blasted through its center, she wonders if Aram had a hidden plan all along. In the distance, smoke rises from a shattered suspension bridge where the impact landed. Amidst the smoking wreckage of the bridge, Aram kneels calmly, holding the hilt of his shattered greatsword. Looking at the shattered stub of his weapon with a satisfied smirk, Aram notes that his greatsword is finally completely broken. Idling his cart nearby, the driver mocks Aram, asking if he's finally ready to give up and accept defeat. The driver taunts him further, pointing out that Aram no longer has a usable weapon left to fight with. Bowing his head in shadow, Aram calmly points out that the driver has also exhausted every single one of his boost charges. The driver sneers back, claiming that even without boosts, he can still easily finish off garbage like Aram. But before the driver can finish his sentence, Aram blitzes forward at terrifying speed, plunging a dark blade straight into the vehicle. Staring in utter disbelief at the sharp dagger sticking out of his cart, the driver stammers, confused how Aram suddenly materialized a new weapon. Coated in swirling dark aura, Aram draws twin daggers, thanking the driver for breaking his heavy greatsword. System notifications explain that destroying his greatsword recycled its crafting materials, returning the twin daggers built inside it. System details introduce the dual swords of promise, a weapon set that traded raw power for insane consecutive attack speed. Crossing his twin daggers with a bloodthirsty grin, Aram declares that the real battle of speed is about to begin. System banners reveal Aram switching back to his first advancement class, the Butcher, ready to completely outspeed his opponent.